And we are live. Welcome, everyone. I imagine everyone has reset their clocks today. It is that Sunday of the year. It is November 2nd, 2025. We welcome all of you to this series of discussions on Martha Root. Today is a special session to get dedicated just to Queen Marie. And just a quick little piece about the presenter, because we have only two sessions left of Martha Root. Miss Violetta is an artist and graphic designer. She's living in Point Noir. She is a researcher, a writer, a presenter. She's specializing in Baha'i history and has given already over 150 talks on YouTube. I think we should change that to 200 by now. The Life of Martha Root will be Violetta's seventh series with the Clearwater Baha'is. And this is, oh, you can find it if you haven't already on the Clearwater Baha'is YouTube channel. Furthermore, she has also posted her chronologies on www.bahaichronologies.com. You can find all her work in English and in French. She is discussed in addition to the life of Martha Root, which we are discussing today. So again, this session, after which you're going to have two more sessions and we're over with. Can you believe that, guys? We're almost done, and there's so much yet to be discussed and explored. We've also gone over with Violetta the lives of Baha'u'llah, the Bab, Abdul Baha, Shoghi Effendi, and also the greatest holy leaf. We remind you once more that her website, I was gonna say Wi-Fi. We don't need any Wi-Fi passwords right now. Her website is www.bahaichronologies.com. You can find all of these works, all of her work, that is, in English and in French. One final word, if you're liking these series so far and you're again watching this after all the previous sessions, we welcome you, please, if you haven't already, to please like, to subscribe, to get more content. Subscriptions really make a difference, so we know that you want more. And of course, liking the video does exactly that. It tells us you want to see more videos like these. Having said that, for those of you who are just joining now and are exploring this as your first ever session, we welcome you again. We welcome you to this session and to view all the previous sessions leading up to this point in Miss Martha Root's life. And further, all those other sessions, all those other beautiful histories we discussed that Violetta has tirelessly worked on for thousands and thousands of hours. With that being said, thank you, Violetta. We're gonna step back here, and it's all you now. We all thank you. The Clearwater Baha'i community thanks you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, I have a couple of surprises for you today. One you're going to find out in the next slide, and the other one is that the author of my favorite book this week is Her Eternal Crown. Her name is Della Marcus, and she is with us today on Zoom, and she will be with us during the questions and answers. If you have any questions about Queen Marie, she is one of the world's experts on Queen Marie. So, that being said, Martha Root Part 6, 1926 to 1938, royalty. This is a special session. Give me a second to set my slideshow. I forgot to do this before. So, Part 6, royalty. Now, the very week in a cosmic twist of fate that I decided to talk about Queen Marie happens to be the 150th anniversary of her birth. That was the surprise. And it was celebrated in Bucharest. Now, Della Marcus is in Bucharest, Romania, and she attended the gala. So it was a collaboration between Della Marcus and myself to write this whole opening section. And at the end, I got into contact with another Romanian Baha'i, Oana Ursache, who wrote the script that you're about to learn about. So Wednesday, 29th of October, 2025 was the Sequicentennial, the 150th anniversary of Queen Marie's birth in 1875. Now here is a little video, a colorized video. I thought that was really cool to see her move around. She looks very confident and energetic. So this is the poster for the gala. This gala was organized by Dr. Varga Enayati and his Queen Marie Social Innovations Foundation, and it took place at the National and Athenaeum, a beautiful and befitting building. Dr. Enayati paid Queen Marie an extraordinary homage, and Romania's most renowned actress, who you see here, Maria Morgenstern, probably best known for her role as the Blessed Virgin Mary in Mel Gibson's The Passion of Christ, performed a very moving one-woman play as Queen Marie, which was written by Oana Ursake. The second to last chapter of the play was entitled Faith, and Maya read aloud about Queen Marie's encounter and connection with the Bahá'í Faith, and the music was composed by Vanda Marie Khadem, a Bahá'í from Boston. Present at this great event was Emil Constantinescu, president of Romania from 1996 to 2000, along with foreign ambassadors, political and business and art personalities. Now I want to give a few minutes of credit to Her Eternal Crown by Della Marcus. In writing about Martha Root and Queen Marie, I relied on Della Marcus's groundbreaking work on original research. Her Eternal Crown is the story of Queen Marie's relationship with the Bahá'í Faith, and it outlines Martha Root's 9 historic audiences with Queen Marie. The way that Della Marcus tells this story is thrilling because she brings you in to the excerpts of Queen Marie's private diaries and letters, as well as letters to and from Martha Root and Shoghi Effendi, many of which are from the International Bahá'í Archives. I am deeply indebted to Della Marcus's work in helping me understand what Shoghi Effendi considered the greatest of all of Martha Root's services to the Bahá'í Faith, introducing a reigning queen to the Bahá'í revelation. What I'm presenting to you today is really just a drop compared to the ocean that you can find in her book, and I really encourage you to buy the book and discover this whole thrilling story from beginning to end. I also want to thank Della Marcus for having taken a look at my script today and providing me with an important clarification on the status of both of Queen Marie's grandparents, Tsar Alexandra II and Queen Victoria, which was very precious to me and made a big difference in my understanding of them, as well as other corrections that were very valuable. She will also be here at the end if you have any questions about Queen Marie. Chapter 1, The Summons of the Lord of Hosts. Queen Marie was the granddaughter of Queen Victoria of England on her father's side, and on her mother's side, she was the granddaughter of Tsar Alexander II of Russia. In 1868, among other kings and monarchs and rulers, Baha'u'llah addressed tablets to both of Marie's grandparents. But he also did something in these tablets that he had never done with any other sovereign. He commended both rulers and praised them. Tsar Alexander II was born in 1818, died in 1881, reigned from 1855 to 1881. In his tablet to Tsar Alexander II, revealed in 1868, the Lohe Maliki Rus, Baha'u'llah summoned him to his cause and told a very moving story. Now, I'm going to give you the whole story. It is alluded to in the tablet of Baha'u'llah. But when Baha'u'llah was arrested on the grounds of the Russian legation in Tehran and taken to the horrific Siatchal, this man, Prince Dmitry Ivanovich Dolgorukov, the Russian minister in Tehran, and his daughter witnessed that event. For 4 months, while Baha'u'llah languished in the icy Siatchal, Prince Dolgorukov never forgot him, and he advocated for Baha'u'llah's innocence. He kept himself informed of Baha'u'llah's situation through his agents in Tehran, and he fearlessly defended Baha'u'llah with sound arguments in front of the imperial court of Persia. He also warned the prime minister, the Amir Kabir, Mirza Taqi Khan, that if anything happened to Baha'u'llah, he would be held personally responsible. It was in part thanks to Prince Dolgorukov's incessant efforts that Baha'u'llah was freed on the 13th of December, 1852. And Baha'u'llah never forgot about Prince Dolgorukov's kindness, and he spoke about him several times, including in this tablet in 1868 to Tsar Alexander II. Whilst I lay chained and fettered in the prison, one of thy ministers extended me his aid. Wherefore hath God ordained for thee a station which the knowledge of none can comprehend except his knowledge. Beware lest thou barter away this sublime station. Thy Lord verily doeth what he willeth. That was the tablet to Marie, an excerpt, a short excerpt of the tablet from Baha'u'llah to Queen Marie's grandfather. In the Lahi Maliki, addressed to Queen Victoria, who was born in 1819, died in 1901, and reigned from 1837 to her death. Baha'u'llah stated, he mentioned a couple of things. The first thing that Baha'u'llah mentions is he commends the Queen for upholding and reinforcing Britain's anti-slavery stance during her very long reign, and for playing an important role in shaping a government that became more representative of the British people. And this is her in Parliament. And this is the tablet of Baha'u'llah, an excerpt. We have been informed that thou hast forbidden in the trading in slaves, both men and women. This verily is what God hath enjoined in this wondrous revelation. God hath truly destined a reward for thee because of this. He verily will pay the doer of good his due recompense, wert thou to follow what hath been sent down unto thee by him who is the all-knowing, the all-informed. Delamarcus believes that both of the hints in the second parts of these excerpts to Queen Victoria and to Tsar Alexander II are Baha'u'llah referring to the reward of their granddaughter accepting his cause. Chapter 2, Marie Alexandra Victoria of Edinburgh. This is her as a baby. She was born in Kent on the 29th of October, 1875. She was the second child of Prince Alfred, the Duke of Edinburgh, son of Queen Victoria, and Grand Duchess Maria Alexandrovna of Russia, the daughter of Tsar Alexander II. This is a family picture with the mother and her children. From left to right, the children are Princess Alexandra, Princess Beatrice, Princess Marie. Standing is Prince Alfred, and next to him is Princess Victoria Melita, Queen Marie's favorite sister. The children grew up in Eastwell Park. Marie was 11 years old when her father was named Commander-in-Chief of the Mediterranean Fleet. This is the Duke of Edinburgh, and you can see his name on a plaque in Malta with the rank of Admiral. Following his appointment, the whole family moved to this beautiful villa, the San Antonio Palace in Malta. They spent 3 years there from 1886 to 1889, and Princess Marie later described her time in Malta as the happiest memory of my existence. Marie was heartbroken when her father became Duke of Saxe-Coburg, and the family was forced to move to Coburg, Germany. Chapter 3, Queen Marie. Marie grew into an exceptionally beautiful and brilliant young woman with sparkling blue eyes. She was one of Europe's most eligible royals. All these pictures are Queen Marie. She was a talented writer, a painter, a sculptor, and a dancer. On the 10th of January, 1893, Marie and Crown Prince Ferdinand I of Romania were married at Sigmaringen Castle in Germany in 3 ceremonies: civil, Catholic, and Anglican. This is a photograph of the young couple not long after their marriage. Marie worked tirelessly to improve the lives of the people of Romania. She sought to raise the level of education and human values and was a tremendous asset to the throne. Marie and Ferdinand had 6 children. This is them with 4 of their children. Her eldest was Carol, who later became Carol II, King of Romania. Then Elizabeth, who later became Queen of Greece. Maria Mignon, which means cute in French. That was her nickname. later Queen of Yugoslavia, Nicholas, Prince Regent of Romania, Ileana, later Archduchess of Austria, and Mircea, who died as a toddler. On the 11th of October, 1914, Marie and Ferdinand was acclaimed as king and queen in the Chamber of Deputies. Marie was a fierce patriot. She was a brilliant politician, and she had a tremendous amount of political influence. Chapter 4, World War I. World War I broke out on July 28, 1914, when Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia following the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand on June 28, 1914. During the first month of hostilities, Romania fought 9 battles, and later some of the battles, like this battle, the Battle of Tortucaia on Romanian territory. Queen Marie of Romania, this outfit to us maybe looks a little bit like a habit, like a nun's habit, but it's not actually. This is a nurse uniform from World War I, because Queen Marie served as a nurse, and she trained with the Red Cross, and she served for most of World War I. She worked in military hospitals near the front lines, supervising hospital operations and distributing food. She was involved with patient care very deeply throughout the war, personally tending to wounded soldiers, changing their bandages, writing letters for them, and often sitting by their side as they died. Queen Marie's heroic wartime services earned her both the love and respect of Romanian troops and the public. Beyond her medical services, one of her most powerful roles and the most powerful impact she had was boosting the morale of soldiers and the army. Her nursing uniform, which she wore constantly during the war, became a national symbol of courage. And forever after, she would be the Romanian people's beloved soldier queen and mother of the wounded. But Marie suffered tremendously during the war. And I want to tell you the story of her youngest child, Mircea Grigore Carol Hohenzollern. It was during World War I that she suffered this very deep tragedy. On the 2nd of November, 1916, Prince Mircea died at Buftea. Marie was absolutely distraught and wrote in her journal, "Can anything ever be the same?" Prince Mircea passed away as battles were raging around Bucharest and enemy troops were advancing. The royal family had to bury him quickly on the grounds of Cotroceni Palace and retreated to the unoccupied part of northern Romania. Prince Mircea's death certificate was partially burnt. The last part of Princess Mircea's epitaph reads, "Mourn for him, for he shared with us the days of suffering, but the days of rejoicing he did not live to see." At the end of World War I, Queen Marie vehemently opposed the signing of the Treaty of Bucharest, viewing it as a national humiliation. So powerful was Marie's influence in politics at the time that leading historian Easterman wrote, "It was not Ferdinand, but Marie who ruled in Romania." And this is her in her military uniform. The outcome of Romania's effort was the union of all these pink areas you see here into Greater Romania. They included Transylvania, Bucovina, Bessarabia, and parts of Banat, Criciana, Maramureș with the kingdom. So it almost doubled in size. Chapter 5, the first audience. Cotroceni Palace, 30th of January, 1926, Bucharest. Martha Root had just completed 3 years of intense teaching that had taken her from Japan to China, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. She went on pilgrimage to Haifa for the first time, then went to Europe in Switzerland, Germany, Austria, Hungary, and finally Serbia. It was Martha's first time in Romania, and she arrived in Bucharest on the 26th of January, 1926. With the intention of sharing the message of Baha'u'llah with Queen Marie of Romania. Of course, everyone in Bucharest told Martha Root This was not going to happen, and even the American ambassador discouraged her. But you know Martha after 6 episodes with her, and you know that she was undeterred. So on the 28th of January, 1926, she sent a letter to Queen Marie with a photograph of Abdu'l-Baha and Dr. Eslamant's marvelous book, Baha'u'llah and the New Era. The next day, on the 29th of January, Martha received a letter inviting her to visit Queen Marie on Saturday, January 30th, 1926 at noon. Martha carefully prepared her gifts. In this visit, because we have 9 visits with Martha Root, and I made them all a little bit interesting in their own way, but the only thing I didn't do is I didn't tell you all the gifts Martha prepared for the Queen every single time because it would have been too much. So I'm going to detail the gifts this time, and just in your mind, imagine the same kind of spread with like a dozen gifts every time Martha visits Queen Marie. For the first audience, Martha carefully prepared her gifts for the Queen: a greatest name, a copy of the 7 Valleys, 2 Esperanto books, her Esperanto pin, a little bottle of perfume, a little box of candy, a branch of white lilacs, and a report of the Education Congress in Edinburgh, because Queen Marie had been born Princess Edinburgh before her marriage. This is a photo of Martha Root in 1926, the same year she met Queen Marie. Martha washed and pressed a long white dress. She always wore white for important meetings, and hired a carriage one way for the 30-minute ride back to the palace. Somebody wanted to pay for her ride back. She said, no, no, no. She wanted to do it her own way. So she left and she arrived at Contruceni Palace on 30th of January, 1926. The wooded grounds around the palace, you see here in winter, looked like a winter wonderland. They were sprinkled with snow and icicles. And the palace itself was absolutely exquisite. Wide walls hung with art and rooms filled with flowers and tapestries. Queen Marie came forward to Martha quickly, smiling, her beautiful blue eyes flashing. After greeting Martha, the Queen's first words were, "I believe these teachings are the solution for the world's problems today." Queen Marie had stayed up until 3 in the morning reading Baha'u'llah and the New Era. She asked Martha to tell her more about the Baha'i Faith and asked her several questions. Queen Marie just loved Martha's gifts. She always would. And she held on to both the greatest name and the photograph of Abdu'l-Baha for most of the hour while they talked. The conversation was very varied. They spoke about world events, world matters, manners, moral, religion, prejudice, Esperanto, education, among other things. This is a photo of Queen Marie's carriage in 1924. So when the audience was over and Martha was to leave, the Queen offered her the royal coach to take Martha back to Bucharest. Everyone had been wrong to worry about how on earth will Martha return from Contruceni Palace. No. This gesture of kindness on the Queen, we will see, she did every single time Martha visited her. Martha immediately knew something had changed for her, and she said in a letter, "Next to my visit to the Greatest Holy Leaf, this visit to Queen Marie was one of the most splendid events of my life." In God Passes By, Shoghi Effendi refers to the audiences between Martha Root and Queen Marie as, quote, "the most outstanding feature of Martha's memorable teaching journeys, specifically because of the public tributes Queen Marie wrote about the faith." Now, this is a London bookstore. Martha made a note sometime later, based on correspondence she'd had with Queen Marie, that Queen Marie had ordered a large number of Baha'i books from Burnside's Limited, and that a few days later, Princess Eliana, her 16-year-old daughter, had also placed a large order of books. Within just a month of hearing about the Baha'i Faith, Queen Marie had become so enkindled that she read the writings of Abdu'l-Baha every morning and called Baha'u'llah's teachings mine, and was particularly moved by the faith's clarity on an issue that was deeply personal to her: true religious tolerance. Because she had been born, she was Anglican Protestant, and her husband was Catholic, and her children were Orthodox, so religious tolerance was important to her. On the 21st of February, 1926, almost exactly a month after meeting Martha Root, Queen Marie wrote in her diary, "Went to English church with Ileana, but it was as I would call a poor service. I really pray better at home with my Baha'u'llah books." On the 21st of February, the same day, she wrote in a letter to her friend Loie Fuller, a dancer, one of her closest friends, "Lately, a great hope has come to me from one Abdul Baha. I have found in his and in his father Baha'u'llah's message of faith all my yearning for real religion satisfied." And then something incredible happened. Chapter 6, the open letters. The first open letter, May 4th, 1926, the Toronto Daily Star. In the spring of 1926, the North American Newspaper Alliance commissioned the Queen to write a column from Romania called Queen's Counsel, which was syndicated in 200 newspapers in North America. And Queen Marie was positively prolific. I've just chosen 4 of them, but there are hundreds of columns that she wrote on anything from fashion to family to, it's incredible how much she wrote. But on May 4th, on September 27th, and on September 28th, Queen Marie spontaneously wrote 3 open letters about the Baha'i Faith and its teachings. And no one was more surprised than the Baha'is, and Martha Root, and Shoghi Effendi. No one knew this was coming. And these 3 letters from a reigning queen, a hero of World War I, and one of the most beloved members of royalty in all of Europe, was the most spectacular publicity the faith had ever received. The Queen's first open letter appeared in the Toronto Daily Star on May 4th, 1926, and I've picked a few excerpts here and there because it's very long. It was titled A Book of Love, and you see all of her columns had a picture of her with her crown, her like Game of Thrones type crown that I absolutely love. A woman brought me the other day a book. I spell it with a capital B because it is a glorious book of love and goodness, strength and beauty. It is a wondrous message that Baha'u'llah and his son Abdul Baha have given us. It is the Christ's message taken up anew, in the same words almost, but adapted to the 1,000 years and more difference that lies between the year 1 and today. No man could fail to be better because of this book. I commend it to you all. If ever the name of Baha'u'llah or Abdul Baha comes to your attention, do not put their writings from you. Search out their books and let their glorious, peace-bringing, love-creating words and lessons sink into your heart as they have into mine. Seek them and be the happier. One of the reasons why this was such a shock to Shoghi Effendi is because when Queen Marie wrote her first open letter, the Baha'i community was reeling and grieving and struggling to be heard. On April 7th, 1926, 12 Baha'i adults and a 16-month-old baby were brutally killed and martyred in Jahrum, Persia, a town 160 kilometers southeast of Shiraz. This is a 10-page report in Farsi about the 12 martyrs of Jahrum. And I would like to thank my very dear friend Farzad Qasemi for organizing the pages in order for me, because I had them in completely reverse order. So thank you, Farzad. But in May 1926, the month that Queen Marie wrote her first open letter, there was a particularly severe persecution of Baha'is in the city of Mazra'ih in Iranian Azerbaijan in the northwest of the country. For this small band of believers of such an oppressed religious community and the beleaguered guardian, surrounded on all sides by internal and external enemies and Baha'i persecution in the cradle of the faith, these very public tributes of a reigning monarch were an immense source of joy and comfort. Shoghi Effendi's very first letter to Queen Marie was dated July 28th, 1926, almost exactly 6 months after she had heard about the faith from Martha Root. May I venture to approach your majesty and express in the names of the Baha'is of both the East and the West our feelings of joyous admiration and boundless gratitude for the queenly tribute which your majesty has paid to the beauty and nobility of the Baha'i teachings. This is a short excerpt. The queen responded to Shoghi Effendi on August 7th, 1926 from Bran, Romania. Also a very short excerpt. Indeed, a great light came to me with the message of Baha'u'llah and Abdul-Baha. It came as all great messages come, at an hour of dire grief and inner conflict and distress. So the seed sank deeply. That my open letter was a balm to those suffering for the cause is indeed a great happiness to me, and I take it as a sign that God accepted my humble tribute. The second open letter, published on 27 September 1926 in the Philadelphia Evening Bulletin. The second open letter of Queen Marie spoke about progressive revelation in a very knowledgeable way. And it mentions the name of Baha'u'llah and recognizes not only his station, but even more groundbreakingly for a Protestant queen, she recognizes the station of the Prophet Muhammad as two manifestations of God. And again, you can read this full tribute in her Eternal Crown. The third open letter was published the very next day after the second one on the 28th of September 1926 in the Toronto Daily Star, and of course published in 200 magazines because it was a syndicated column. This letter was called Creation's Aim. And it's really interesting because it's a very I would almost say scholarly explanation about life after death, taken in full from the writings of Abdul-Baha on the subject. And at the end, the queen says that she calls Abdul-Baha's writings on the life after death the most convincing elucidation I know on the subject. Now, following these incredible open letters, Shoghi Effendi wrote a letter. Well, of course, wrote a letter to the queen about them, but also wrote on the 17th of October, 1926, a letter to the Western Baha'is. This is the full letter, and I'm just going to read a paragraph and a half. One of the visible and potent effects which this historic interview, Martha Root and Queen Marie, proved capable of achieving was the remarkable appeal in the form of an open letter which Her Majesty freely and spontaneously caused to be published to the world at large, testifying in a language of exquisite beauty to the power and the sublimity of the message of Baha'u'llah. With bowed heads and grateful hearts, we recognize this glowing tribute which royalty has thus paid the cause of Baha'u'llah, an epoch-making pronouncement destined to herald those stirring events which, as Abdul-Baha has prophesied, shall in the fullness of time signalize the triumph of God's holy faith, meaning the acceptance of the faith by royalty centuries from now. Chapter 7, Queen Marie in America. The American Tour, 18 October to 10 November 1926. Queen Marie arrived in New York on the 18th of October, 1926, on this extremely huge ship called, appropriately, the Leviathan. She was accompanied by Prince Nicholas and Princess Eliana, and they embarked on a one-month tour of America. Their visit was a huge media event. They went to Canada, all over America. This is their arrival. She's driven through New York in this fantastic car. And this is a ticker tape parade down Fifth Avenue. This is Queen Marie on the steps of New York City Hall. And then on the next day, the 19th of October, this is her arriving in Washington Station, Union Station. And this is her with a private audience with President Coolidge and his wife, Grace. In Philadelphia, she was honored an honorary degree and visited the Liberty Bell. This is the program of the evening. Then she visited the Military Academy West Point in the pouring rain. She managed to visit Niagara Falls. It was a huge event in all the papers. But really, After Niagara Falls and having gone to Toronto, she went through Cleveland, Ohio, Chicago, Minneapolis, and then arrived in North Dakota. And this is Queen Marie's most memorable visit. She was welcomed on the 2nd November 1926 by a delegation of Lakota at the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe Reservation. They performed a traditional ceremony, placed a Lakota feathered war bonnet on her head. Those are eagle feathers. As a symbol of honor and leadership, they offered her a peace pipe representing goodwill, unity, and hope for peace between people, and gave her the Lakota name Wian Kipan Pipiwin. Wian, sorry, Wian Kipan Piwin, which means woman who was awaited. This is Queen Marie in Goldendale in Washington on November 3rd, 1926, where she dedicated the Mary Hill Museum of Art and released a pigeon. That's her releasing the pigeon right there. And then she went to LA. And when she got to LA, she was the dinner guest of the two most famous movie stars in the world at the time, Douglas Fairbanks, the King of Hollywood, and Mary Pickford, America's sweetheart. On the 24th of November, Queen Marie sailed out of New York on the Leviathan to return home. This is a photograph of the National Spiritual Assembly of the United States in 1931 because there is no photo for 1926. But while she was in the United States, she received a beautiful letter from the National Spiritual Assembly of the United States dated November 1st, 1926. And in every single city she traveled to, the Baha'is gave her bouquets of flowers. And Martha Root published her appreciation for their kindness in Star of the West. And it meant a lot to Queen Marie. And the appreciation is much longer. But again, anytime I read something, it's always an excerpt. I am so happy to be able to thank, through the Baha'i magazine Star of the West, all these Baha'i friends in America who sent me the lovely bouquets in all the cities through which I passed. How it touched my heart. No one ever understood how much these bouquets meant to me. Chapter 8, The Passing of King Ferdinand. King Ferdinand's coronation took place in a spectacular ceremony on October 15th, 1922. It was very theatrical. This is a portrait of Queen Marie and King Ferdinand on the day of their coronation. His coronation solidified King Ferdinand's image as Ferdinand the Unifier. King Ferdinand promulgated a new liberal constitution, which is adopted on the 29th of March, 1923, strengthening parliamentary democracy and affirming civil rights. It was one of the most important documents in Romania's history. Then there was a public scandal and a family scandal, really. On the 28th of December, 1925, the young man you see here, the eldest son of King Ferdinand and Queen Marie, Prince Carol, renounced his right due to a scandal involving his mistress, Elena Lupescu. Prince Carol went into exile, which forced King Ferdinand to designate his youngest grandson, Prince Mihai, seen here with his grandmother, as heir presumptive. The scandal strained Ferdinand emotionally and publicly. By 1926, King Ferdinand's health had seriously deteriorated, and he withdrew more from public life, though he continued to perform some duties. Political instability continued, and Queen Marie often acted as a unifying figure in his stead. King Ferdinand passed away on July 20th, 1927 at Pelișor Castle in Sinaia after a long illness, and was succeeded by his 5-year-old grandson, King Mihai I, under a regency. The same day, Shoghi Effendi sent Queen Marie a cable. Abdul Baha's family and Baha'is world over tender your majesty heartfelt condolences. Chapter 9, The Second Audience. Pelișor Castle, 9th of October, 1927 in Sinaia. And this is this beautiful castle. Martha arrived in Bucharest in October 1927 Martha was still at Pelișor, her summer palace in the Carpathian Mountains, 140 kilometers away. This was where King Ferdinand had passed away, and she was still in a period of mourning, but she still received Martha Root. Very kind, 3 months after the passing of her husband. Martha arrived at the train station in Sinaia under the pouring rain. A thief stole one of her luggages and her lunch, which is extremely cruel. And on the 9th of October, 1927, when Martha entered Queen Marie's drawing room on the upper floor, she found the Queen had been reading on a big couch just before she arrived, and that all the scattered books around her were Baha'i books. Martha had come with a mountain of gifts, but was carrying something very special, a precious relic as a gift for Queen Marie, which the Baha'is of Khorasan, Iran, had offered Martha in recognition of her unrivaled services to the Baha'i Faith. It was an illuminated sheet with a prayer that Baha'u'llah had revealed for a Baha'i woman, and adorned in the center of the prayer was a ring of Baha'u'llah's own sacred hair. The Queen absolutely loved it and said she would have a frame made especially for the calligraphy. The visit was heavenly. Queen Marie kissed Martha Root twice and put her arm around her. And after this visit, the Guardian wrote Martha an absolutely exceptional letter filled with praise. And why I say this is because the Guardian did not do this to living Baha'is as a matter of fact. Like, it was very rare for the Guardian to write this way to people because he didn't want people's ego to grow. And he was safe with Martha because she was so incredibly humble. And this is where he speaks about the historical importance of her work. Only future generations can adequately appreciate the extent and the significance of your present services, the circumstances under which you labor, and the stimulating influence you are exerting throughout the Baha'i world. Chapter 10, third audience. The Royal Palace in Belgrade, January 21st, 1928. On January 21st, 1928, Martha arrived at the gates of the Royal Palace in Belgrade at 3:55 p.m., and she was met by very serious guards in red and blue uniforms. The Queen was in an interesting state at that time because she was overjoyed that her first grandson, the little chubby baby you see here, had just been born, Prince Tomislav of Yugoslavia. And that was a source of great joy. But one of her closest friends, and actually a friend of hers for 25 years, was Loie Fuller, an American dancer, a pioneer of not only modern dance, but theatrical lighting, had passed away, and it was a great loss for the Queen. Queen Marie spoke about the real meaning of God and true religion and told Martha, the ultimate dream, which we shall realize, is that the Baha'i channel of thought has such strength, it will serve little by little to become a light to all those searching for the real expression of truth. During Martha's third audience with the Queen, Queen Marie told her, I want to give you a gift. I have brought it for you from Bucharest. The Queen smiled, excused herself, went to her room, and brought the gift. When she returned, she pinned an extraordinary brooch to Martha's dress herself. Now, there are no pictures of the brooch. I made this with artificial intelligence. I know it's ugly, but this is just an illustration. The rare and precious brooch that Queen Marie gave Martha, which is just such an immense gesture from a queen, was actually from Russian royal jewelry. It had been given to her by her royal relatives in Russia years ago. It was made of 2 little wings of wrought gold and silver set with diamonds and joined together with 1 large pearl. Martha said, Oh, how I should love to keep this, but Queen Marie, I give away nearly everything. The Queen smiled and replied, I know you do. That very week, Martha sent the brooch to Chicago as a gift for the House of Worship Fund. A lot of people were shocked that she did. They couldn't understand how she would part with such a precious gift. But this was Martha Root. This is the reason why the Guardian could write to her momentous words time and time again in letter after letter, and it never affected her ego. Martha needed the money to travel. She couldn't afford to stay in Bucharest long because it was a very expensive city. But do not worry, because this man, Willard Hatch, a California Baha'i, bought the brooch immediately, contributed the money to the House of Worship Fund, and then 3 years later, he took the brooch to Haifa, where he gave it to Shoghi Effendi and entered it into the International Baha'i Archives, the very first royal gift to enter the Baha'i International Archives, courtesy of Martha Root. Chapter 11, the fourth audience. Tenhayuva in Balchik, 28th of September, 1929. On the 28th of September, while Martha was in Istanbul, she traveled 18 hours on a boat up the Black Sea to Constanța, Romania, where she was escorted to the Queen Marie's palace in Balchik, 116 kilometers away. The queen had designed this secluded summer palace for herself, even down to the exquisite color harmonies, and it was called Tenhayuva, Turkish for solitary nest. The palace was an architectural marvel built on sheer, sternly rising cliffs overlooking the Black Sea with terraced gardens going down to the shore. While Martha was sitting in the car waiting to enter through the palace gates, a bugler came out on the cliffs and began to play a welcome. And then he was joined by yodelers echoing his melodies. The breathtaking scenery and setting of Tenhayuva was just the most unique visit Martha ever made to Queen Marie. They invited her with her daughter, Princess Ileana, upstairs to the drawing room for private talk. The queen asked Martha about the Guardian and the Greatest Holy Leaf and said she was hoping in 1930, when she traveled to Egypt, to visit both the Shrine of Baha'u'llah in Bahçi and the shrines of the Bab and Abdul Baha in Haifa and the Most Great Prison in Akka. Chapter 12, the coup. 3 years after the death of his father on the 6th of June, 1930, Carol returned to Bucharest. Remember, he had given up his throne and caused his father to name his grandson Mihai I, who was 5 years old, king regent. Well, he returned and stole the throne, basically removed his young son Mihai from the throne in a coup and proclaimed himself King Carol II. This is him proclaiming himself king. Now, King Carol began a reign of paranoia and persecution, and he tried to control his mother, Queen Marie. He expropriated her entire income and placed his ex-wife Helen under house arrest. After her son Carol's coup, Queen Marie's life became more difficult. She was deliberately sidelined and humiliated by the new king, which led to a reduction in her influence and her finances. Chapter 13, the missed visit. Queen Marie and her daughter Ileana were so convinced that they were going to the Holy Land that they told their friends in letters about their travel plans. They left Romania on the royal yacht, the Dacia, and arrived in Alexandria sometime in February 1930. Both Shoghi Effendi and Bahia Hanum were making preparations for the Queen's visit, but then, unfortunately, the papers got wind of Queen Marie's trip to the Middle East, and combined, I suppose, with her open letters about the Baha'i Faith, on the 2nd of March, 1930, the Sunday Express announced a scoop that was published all the way to Australia. These are all Australian papers that are reprinting the same article from London. Queen convert to Baha'ism creed with more than 3 million followers. Marie, the Queen Dowager of Romania and grandmother of the boy King Michael, who is now on her way to Jerusalem, is understood to have recently become a convert to Baha'ism. The Queen's new religion has more than 3 million adherents of all creeds, and they describe their faith as the union of all other religions. The article went on to greatly inflate the number of Babi martyrs in 1852, which had nothing to do with Queen Marie of Romania, but was very sensational. And then the scandal continues on the 18th of February, 1930, when the Palestine Bulletin misrepresented Queen Marie's planned visit. The beautiful Queen Marie of Romania is coming to Palestine at the end of this month, or early next month, unless her present plans are changed. Together with this news comes the report that the Queen Mother is to become a member of the Bahá'í and will visit Haifa for the purpose of meeting Shoghi Effendi, the leader of the Bahá'í throughout the world. Shoghi Effendi sent 2 cables to Egypt, which obviously were never delivered to the Queen, including one that had a special invitation for her to come and visit the Baha'i World Center. This is a Queen Marie during her visit to Egypt in Giza. There was no answer to Shoghi Effendi's cables. The Queen's planned visit to Haifa had been sabotaged because of the newspaper scandal. By the 26th of March, 1930, Shoghi Effendi understood that the Queen's visit had been deeply politicized beyond any hope of reparation and that she would no longer be coming to Haifa. So he sent her a telegram, deeply regret unauthorized publicity given by the press. On March 1930, Queen Marie actually docked in Haifa. She came to Haifa. She was a stone's throw away from Shoghi Effendi and the Greatest Holy Leaf, but she was taken, physically placed into a car, and rushed through Ottoman Palestine to Damascus, or to from British Mandate Palestine to Damascus. Shoghi Effendi, the Greatest Holy Leaf, Queen Marie, and Princess Ileana were all deeply disappointed at the missed opportunity, and Queen Marie opened up to Martha Root in a letter on June 28, 1931. Both Ileana and I were cruelly disappointed at having been prevented from going to the holy shrines and meeting Shoghi Effendi. But that time, we were going through a cruel crisis, and every movement I made was being turned against me, being politically exploited in an unkind way. Remember, the coup happened that same year. It caused me a good deal of suffering and curtailed my liberty most unkindly. Chapter 14, Mazra'ih. Lillian McNeill, and every single photo in this section is of the mansion of Mazra'ih. Lillian McNeill was a childhood friend of Queen Marie's from their time in Malta. They remained friends throughout their whole lives. And very interestingly, they both discovered the Baha'i Faith around the same time. In the 1930s, Lillian and her husband, Angus McNeill, who was a retired military officer with the British Army, leased the mansion, and they were Baha'is at the time, and they leased the mansion of Mazra'ih and carefully restored it, keeping all of the parts where Baha'u'llah had set foot completely intact. And Shoghi Effendi visited them many times in Mazra'ih. Queen Marie wrote to Lillian in Mazra'ih, "Dear little Lillian, indeed, it was indeed nice to hear from you. And to think that you are, of all things, living near Haifa and are, like me, a follower of the Baha'i teachings. It interests me that you're living in that special house. The teachers, with a capital T, so loved flowers. And being English, I can imagine what a lovely garden you have made in that Eastern climate. I was so intensely interested and studied each photo intently. It must be a lovely place, and those southeastern landscapes and gardens attract me with a sort of homesickness ever since our Malta days. And the house you live in, so incredibly attractive and made precious by its associations with the man we all venerate." Chapter 15, The Fifth Audience, in Mödling, 9th of August, 1932. Queen Marie's daughter Ileana had now married Archduke Anton of Austria on the 26th of July, 1931, and she was now Princess Ileana, Archduchess Anton of Austria. Martha visited them in Mödling, Austria, for her 7th audience with Queen Marie on the 9th of August, 1932. Queen Marie kissed Martha twice when she arrived. Martha had brought a mountain of gifts, and Queen Marie told her daughter, "You see how she always brings me these lovely gifts." Queen Marie loved and admired the Baha'i teachings, but she was a Protestant officially. She'd been married to a Catholic. Her children were Orthodox. And so religion was a political affair for a queen, which Martha completely understood the delicate balance of her identifying with Baha'i beliefs and the Baha'i revelation and her public responsibilities as queen. And she told Queen Marie, "You are an internationalist in religion. You are Greek Orthodox and Baha'i and Roman Catholic." And the queen laughed and said yes. Martha conveyed to Mary and Princess Ileana the guardian's greetings and told them about the passing of the greatest holy leaf. And then, of course, they sat around with other friends and a cake was passed around. And Martha took such a tiny piece of the cake that the queen cut a larger piece and put it on her plate and smiled at her. Queen Marie told her gathered family about Martha Root's travels as a Baha'i, asked Martha questions about it. And so everyone around the table heard about the faith from the queen. Chapter 16, the sixth audience, also in Mödling, about a year later, on the 31st of January, 1933. Oh, 5 months later. Martha returned and had an audience with Queen Marie and Princess Ileana over lunch, and they spoke about the greatest holy leaf's passing. And the queen said, "There are people who just radiate good. It's like a clear atmosphere. They do not realize the good they do." Chapter 17, the seventh audience, Contrecen Palace, 16th of February, 1934 in Bucharest. Martha's seventh audience with Queen Marie took place in Bucharest again, and the queen had recommended her own translator to Martha, so she was very delighted to hear that Baha'u'llah and the New Era was being published in Romanian. This is not the tablet. Queen Marie was so touched by Shoghi Effendi's gift of an illuminated tablet of Baha'u'llah, which she planned to have framed immediately and hung in her room. She asked Martha to convey a message to the guardian. "In my heart, I am entirely Baha'i." Queen Marie told Martha a very cute story. She was visiting Hamburg, Germany, and her carriage was passing through the streets. And the Baha'i woman who was in the street, with a perfect aim, I might add, threw a note into the queen's carriage that read, "I am so happy to see you because you're a Baha'i, signed a Baha'i." This is just the kind of weird things that Baha'is will do. So Martha asked the queen if she was pleased with the little incident, and the queen replied, "Yes, they recognized me as a Baha'i," and it showed the spirit of unity among Baha'is. Then, after she left, Queen Marie kept a diary her entire life. Entire life. I think it was published in 11 volumes. So she wrote in her diary about Martha's visit, her seventh visit. She said, "Received Miss Root, more touching and absurdly excellent than ever. She has worked heroically, and though tired and rather ailing, her enthusiasm is quite undaunted. Nothing discourages her. No difficulty or sacrifice makes her falter. She is bewunderungswürdig," which is German and impronounceable for admirable. Chapter 18, a time of great loss. King George V. King George was Queen Marie's first cousin, and he had reigned on Great Britain since the May 6th, 1910. Since World War I, King George V had suffered several bouts of illness and suffered from chronic bronchitis. He died at 11:55 p.m. on January 20th at Sandringham House, surrounded by Queen Marie and their 6 children, his wife, Queen Marie. Princess Victoria. Victoria Melita of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha was Queen Marie's favorite sister. They were only 1 year apart, and they stayed close their entire lives. But she had lived a very difficult life, marked by emotional turmoil, personal loss, and strained relationships of 2 failed marriages. She had been exiled from Russia and had lost everything. In February 1936, shortly after the christening of her 5th grandchild, Princess Victoria suffered a stroke, and Queen Marie rushed to her bedside and was able to see her before she passed. Princess Victoria Melita died on March 2nd, 1936. She was 59. Queen Marie was deeply heartbroken. Chapter 19, the 8th audience. Contrecen Palace, 4th of February, 1936. Martha came to her 8th audience, and it marked 10 years of friendship between Martha Root and Queen Marie. They were 61 and 64 years old. The Queen had traveled to London that year and met Lady Blomfield, who had given her an illuminated copy of the tablet Baha'u'llah had revealed in 1868 for her grandmother, Queen Victoria, in London, covered in gold leaf, which Shoghi Effendi had commissioned in Iran to give her in person in 1930, but she had never come to the Holy Land. Or rather, she had, but she'd been kidnapped. I mean, not really, but she hadn't been allowed to stop in Haifa. Queen Marie spoke to Martha Root about the depth of the Kitabi-i-Khan and her love for gleanings from the writings of Baha'u'llah, which had just been published, translated, compiled, and published by The Guardian. And she passed along a message to Shoghi Effendi this time again. Tell him I think Gleanings is a wonderful book. Even doubters would find powerful strength in it if they would read it alone and would give it their soul's time to expand. Tell Shoghi Effendi, too, I think how disturbed he must be to see how the peoples of the world are still full of unrest. I myself do not believe in war, and I hope that he, as I will use whatever spiritual influence he has to continue the work for peace. This is a train in 1936. I just kind of liked it. So Queen Marie loved Martha Root, and this is something that I really love. Every time Martha Root visited Queen Marie, she gave her a first-class ticket from Bucharest. And this had been her habit from the very first visit. In a letter she wrote to Shoghi Effendi on the 10th of February, 1936, she tells him the whole thing. She says, they have done that for me each time. It helped me a lot for my health and also financially because it was so expensive in Bucharest. It was a sacrifice for Martha to come to Bucharest so often because Romania was very expensive. And the Queen giving her a first-class ticket was good for her health because first-class conditions were amazing compared to third class, which is how she usually traveled. And this is a really amazing discovery of Della Marcus, and I hope you ask her about it in the questions and answers. We've always thought there were only 8 audiences with Queen Marie, but there was actually a 9th audience that Della found. And this is how it happened in Vienna. On March 20th, 1936, Martha Root was in Vienna for Nowruz, and it just so happened that Queen Marie was in Vienna also. So the Queen asked Martha to meet her at the Ambassador Hotel, which you see on this slide. The Queen arrived at the hotel. 45 minutes later, somebody came to get Martha and took her to the room of the Queen where she was resting. And she gave her the Baha'i World Volume 5, which very beautifully, I mean, it also had one of her tributes in it, but it opened on this beautiful picture of the Greatest Holy Leaf. And the Queen opened the volume and looked at the Greatest Holy Leaf's portrait for a long while and said, "Oh, how beautiful." That was the last time Martha ever saw Queen Marie. Now, because we just talked about the Baha'i World volume, I want to tell you a little bit about Queen Marie's appreciations. This is a very meaningful photograph. I found it on Baha'i Media, the website. It was autographed by Queen Marie to Shoghi Effendi, dated in 1929 and inscribed to Shoghi Effendi with a message of love and faith. In a letter to Martha Root from the 28th of June, 1931, because Queen Marie knew how much the Guardian loved the Baha'i World, the yearbook of the Baha'i Faith, she wrote a special tribute to the Baha'i Faith for publication in Volume 4 for the years 1930 to 1932. And this is the tribute in Volume 4, the first one she wrote. Remember, okay, so Queen Marie wrote 3 open letters and 3 tributes in the Baha'i World. This is going to come up at the end of the talk. This is the first tribute. The Baha'i teachings bring peace and understanding. It is like a wide embrace gathering together all those who have long searched for words of hope. It accepts all prophets gone before it, It destroys no other creeds and leaves the doors open. Saddened by the continual strife amongst believers of many confessions and wearied of their intolerance towards each other, I discovered in the Baha'i teaching the real spirit of Christ, so often denied and misunderstood. Unity instead of strife, hope instead of condemnation, love instead of hate, and a great reassurance for all men. Signed, Marie. Queen Marie wrote 2 more appreciations for the Baha'i World volumes, Volume 5 and Volume 6. Chapter 22, The Passing of Queen Marie. In March 1937, Queen Marie became seriously ill. At times, she was so weak she couldn't even hiccup a pen. I want to quote Delamarcus here, but I want to just say 2 things. One is Mignon is the daughter, Marie Mignon. That's her name. And there was a quote from Baha'u'llah, but it was a provisional translation from the 1930s. And I actually substituted it with the authoritative translation that was just done a couple of years ago. So this is what Delamarcus says. One of the last and perhaps most significant entries in Queen Marie's diary was written just before her passing. For Mignon, a little wisdom for you, my child, Mama. Know thou that in every age and dispensation, all the divine laws and ordinances are changed and altered according to the requirements of the times, except the law of love, which like a stream floweth continually and whose course never suffereth alteration or change. Baha'u'llah. Queen Marie passed away on July 18th, 1938 at 5:38 p.m., 8 minutes after lapsing into a coma, her 2 eldest children at her side. She was 63. She was the last queen of Romania. Chapter 23, The Legacy of Queen Marie. Queen Marie of Romania left behind a remarkable legacy. She had been a fierce defender of Romania and its people, a great humanitarian, revered for her compassion, courage, and devotion to her people and her heroic efforts during World War I. She had been one of the most beloved queens of the 20th century. Her leadership during the war had helped maintain Romania's unity and dignity in one of its darkest periods. She had played a pivotal role in the 1919 Paris Peace Conference and had become a respected figure in European diplomacy, which was deeply unusual at the time for a queen consort. In her personal life, Queen Marie was an accomplished writer, a painter. This is a photo of her painting, and all of around her is her artwork, which is gorgeous. She was a photographer. This is her taking a photograph. She was a designer. These are a bench and a chair that were designed according to her designs. And she wrote 34 books. The 4 next slides are all the books she wrote. I'm not going to read them, just you can find them on her Wikipedia page. From 1912 to 1937, Queen Marie of Romania wrote over 30 books, spanning an impressive range from fiction, fantasy, fairy tales to memoirs. She wrote about spirituality, social and political issues, queenhood, motherhood, faith, identity, and Romania. Queen Marie was awarded 18 honors from 10 kingdoms and duchies, including the United Kingdom's Royal Order of Victoria and Albert II Class and France's Grande Croix de la Légion d'honneur. In 1944, The Guardian singled Queen Marie out for everlasting glory in the annals of Baha'i history in God Passes By. Alone among her sister queens, alone among those of royal birth or station, she was moved to spontaneously acclaim the greatness of the message of Baha'u'llah, to proclaim his fatherhood, as well as the prophethood of Muhammad, to commend the Baha'i teachings to all men and women, and to extol their potency, sublimity, and beauty. Through the fearless acknowledgement of her belief to her own kith and kin, and particularly to her youngest daughter, through 3 successive encomiums that constitute her greatest and abiding legacy to posterity, through 3 additional appreciations penned by her as her contribution to Baha'i publications, through several letters written to friends and associates, as well as those addressed to her guide and spiritual mother, through various tokens expressive of faith and gratitude for the glad tidings that had been brought to her through the orders for Baha'i books placed by her and her youngest daughter, and lastly, through her frustrated pilgrimage to the Holy Land for the express purposes of paying homage at the graves of the founders of the faith. Through such acts as these, this illustrious queen may well deserve to rank as the first of those royal supporters of the cause of God who are to arise in the future, and each of whom, in the words of Baha'u'llah himself, is to be acclaimed as the very eye of mankind, the luminous ornament on the bow of creation, the fountainhead of blessings unto the whole world. Some of my caste, she in a personal letter has significantly testified, wonder at and disapprove my courage to step forward, pronouncing words not habitual for crowned heads to pronounce, but I advance by an inner urge I cannot resist. With a bowed head, I recognize that I too am but an instrument in greater hands, and I rejoice in the knowledge. Thank you very much. See you next week for part 7 in the life of Martha Root.